increase in the number of patients who are undergoing liver and kidney transplant, bone marrow transplant, and other transplants. With these, there is a rise of infection in these population. And infection is a major cause of morbidity and mortality in these patients. This could be related to their decreased immunity before the transplant, and it could also be related to the infection during the operative period and post-transplant. So there are various risk factors which are very peculiar to this group of population. So we have with us Dr. Deepak Govil, who is Director Critical Care at Medanta Medicity, Gurgaon. So Dr. Deepak, what are the risk factors which predispose these patients to infections, particularly the post-liver transplant infections?
Actually, they are multifactorial risk factors. If we start from the beginning, majority of these patients who are coming for transplant, they are severely ill for long duration, and they are bedridden many times, and they are also nutritionally depleted. And you know, the liver is a major organ which supports the immunity. So once the liver is gone, they are already immunosuppressant. And on top of that, the long surgery, close to 8 to 10 hours of surgery with multiple blood transfusions and blood products, and then high doses of immunosuppressant to support the recipient liver. So these immunosuppressant drugs, they also causes loss of immunity. So this is the multifactorial, starting from the basic disease to surgery and to the immunosuppressant drug.
So there could be pre-operative, operative,
and
then of course
post-operative things.
I think it is also very important, the net immunosuppression.
Yes.
Because we have now new immunosuppressant, but still I think they do predispose these patients to infection.
Exactly.
You know, the other thing which we've seen in all the transplant patient, although that's called the timeline. So the various infections in various timelines are different, although the timeline has changed with the better immunosuppressant. So what is the timeline for post-liver transplant patients?
Actually, the timeline starts from the immediate post-operative phase. I would say up to 1 month of the post-operative phase, then up to, usually these patients go home in 20-25 days. So in that time they are in a controlled environment. Once they are going back to their home environment, again there is a different set of infection, and there are long complications like long term infections which occur usually after 6 months. So if broadly I divide up to 1 month, 1 month to 6 months, and more than 6 months. So starting with the 1 month initial phases is a slight difference in the Western data and our data. At our part of the world, we majority of these patients, they are having gram-negative sepsis predominantly, and especially in gram-negative, they are multi-drug resistant gram-negative sepsis, mainly the Klebsiella, E. coli. They are the major ones, and sometimes we see the Pseudomonas.
They will also vary from
center to
ICU.
center. Yeah, center.
And the community where the person is.
Yeah, community is little different, but to be honest with you, all around the world, the transplant ICUs are almost having similar type of the asepsis precaution. In Western world, they are having more of the gram-positive, whereas in our part of the world, we are having all over India, we are having more of the gram-negative. Then comes the fungal infection. Fungal infection usually starts having little later, maybe after 10 days or 7 days of the disease, up to 1 month, and then viral infection starts coming, like cytomegalovirus, they start coming. And from once patient goes home, then there is a risk of Pneumocystis carinii infection. And if patient is exposed to tuberculosis previously or has taken the anti-tubercular treatment, there is a high risk of reactivation of the tuberculosis as well in these patients.
So the infections in these transplant patients, you can predict with fairly accuracy that what could be the infections. Like up to 1 month, it is the community acquired or the nosocomial infection which are prevalent in that, which could be related sometime to devices, because patient has a urinary catheter, he has a line, he has a tube, so it could be related to that. And most of the organisms, they are the gram negative, as Dr. Deepak Govil has said. And 1 to 6 months is the time when you have more of the opportunistic infection. And after 6 months, because the immunosuppression is decreased, so the infection again could be the community acquired infections. So Dr. Deepak, in these patients, starting from the operation, sometime pre-operatively, you give the prophylactic regimens.
Yes.
So what are the common prophylactic regimens?
we have divided prophylactic regimen into two categories. One, those patients who are having low risk of infection, and those patients who are having high risk. It's an arbitrary division. I can't say this is well documented, but you can understand those patients who are coming from the community relatively well preserved, relatively healthy, doing their all jobs, day to day things themselves, they are at the lower risk of infection. In those patients, we start with BL-BLI combination like piperacillin tazobactam, plus some coverage for gram positive like teicoplanin and metronidazole. Along with we give universal prophylaxis of antifungal in the form of fluconazole. And those patients who come into the high risk, like those patients who are in and out of the hospital, or they have already been treated for some sort of infection in the ICU or hospitalized for more than 30 days, or those who have already received the meropenem or any carbapenem, we straight away start them with the carbapenem. Or those patients where the surgery is too long, or there is some suspicion of the infection in the donor as well. So those patients, they receive carbapenem along with the teicoplanin, along with the metronidazole. And those patients who have previously received fluconazole in last 90 days due to some reason, and in those patients who have received more than 10 units of the blood, or where the surgery is more than 12 hours, we start them with the echinocandin.
So basically, you give them antibiotic prophylactic in these, and in addition to that, you give prophylaxis for the
Fungal coverage.
Fungus, and also for the prophylactic regimen for the opportunistic infection is also started.
Yeah, we start in post-operative. Once they have start taking orally, usually from third day we start the cotrimoxazole regime to avoid give prophylaxis to Pneumocystis caarnii. There is a small difference with the Western data. In Western world, they give ganciclovir as a prophylaxis for CMV virus to all the patients. In our part of the world, we don't prefer to give all the patients, except where the where the count is too high preoperatively. We do CMV estimation in all the donors and the recipient, and if we find that there are DNA count, viral load is little higher, then we give to them. Or in those patients where we are doing ABO incompatible liver transplant, in those patients, because in ABO incompatible transplant we have to give up too much high dose of the immunosuppressant. So in those patients we give universal prophylaxis for cytomegalovirus.
So the practice could differ from country to country and the transplant unit to another transplant unit, but I think two drugs which we very commonly give is a trifethoprim sulfamethoxazole, single strength, 1 tablet a day, every day, or thrice a week if you give a double strength. Then the ganciclovir is practiced in some where there is a high viral load, and certain centers they always give it. The other thing is that when you give the trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole, it not only prevents the Pneumocystis jirovecii, it also has an effect against some of the other like the Listeria monocytogenes and Toxoplasma gondii. Similarly, when you give ganciclovir, it also prevents not only the CMV, HSV, and some of the other viruses. So these are the two very important prophylactic. So now coming on to infections. So what are the difficulties one faces in diagnosing infection in these individuals?
Actually, these patients are immunosuppressant. So these patients, they do not surmount the same reaction as a healthy person in ICU do. Meaning by this, many times they are having infection without any raise of the TLC. As we take TLC as one of the marker of the infection, because of the immunosuppressant drug, their TLC is not many times raised. Many times their procalcitonin is high because the regenerating liver is producing procalcitonin. So procalcitonin is already high. Many times even these patients, they don't have even fever, neither tachycardia, or many times tachycardia is there due to some other reason. So the common things we do to identify a septic type of patient, we are missed here. And many these patients, they are already in hyperdynamic circulation. So that hyperdynamic circulation is again they are vasodilated, tachycardic, high cardiac output. So sometimes it becomes very difficult to distinguish whether it's a body's own response or it's an infection response to the infection. We send all the cultures almost daily to these patients in initial first week, and then alternate day or maybe twice a week till till 15 days, and then maybe once a week till patient is discharged. To
So
identify.
biomarkers practically don't help this.
Biomarkers
will not help in the
no,
infection.
they help, but not their value is different. So what we do is we do these biomarkers repeatedly, and if the rising trend is there, then we know something is wrong. But isolated value normally is a multiple, like you can say 5 to 10 times high the normal value which is seen in the liver transplant patient because of the regeneration of the liver.
And do you give vaccination to these patients to prevent infections?
Live vaccine should be avoided at our center. They are little scared of the live vaccine because they feel that with the immunosuppressant the disease can happen. So at our place we are not practicing the live.
And mostly they say that after the surgery is done, probably the Western world pneumococcal and influenza virus vaccine they give it.
Yeah.
One dose after the surgery has been
Lot
done.
of literature is there, but at our center we are not practicing that.
And how do you diagnose CMV in your patients?
CMV is the we send the serum for CMV, and we can send the, even if suspicion is there, ball fluid for viral load and blood for viral load. So there are two type of estimation, quantitative as well as qualitative. In qualitative they just give yes or no, in quantitative they give the viral load exactly, and if viral load is high then we start treating.
So basically the molecular based or PCR assay, they give you the count, the viral load, but the antigenemia PP365 can just tell you whether it is present or not. So how do you treat these patients? You use the same ganciclovir or venganciclovir?
No, venganciclovir is used as a maintenance therapy. Initially we load them with the ganciclovir.
They say the oral bioavailability of this is
yeah,
better.
it's good, but many times if patient is already having CME, you can understand these patients are very sick. So sometimes whether they are they are absorbing drug from the stomach or not, many times they are having gastroparesis as well. So we prefer to give injectable in initial phases, and once the patient is stabilized on that, then we move to.
And the other very common infection is tuberculosis. So how often do you see?
To be honest with you,
tuberculosis?
those patients who are having history of tuberculosis or being treated for tuberculosis, we give them prophylaxis with INH, all the universal prophylaxis with INH. So any patient having history of taking ATT in previous phase before transplant is covered with the INH.
See, because this is common to our country where there is very high incidence of tuberculosis. But in a Western world, they do latent tuberculosis, and then they consider giving them prophylaxis. And of course, the chances of reactivation would be higher. Basically, you should use drugs which are liver safe. So we have now the increase in the population of patients who have transplant, liver, kidney, bone marrow, or some other transplant which are being done, like the lung transplant, and these patients are more prone to infections. So in these patients, not only we see the common infections, we also see the opportunistic pathogens. And there is a timeline. You can with fairly accuracy predict what kind of infection would be there. And one should know the risk factor, and one should start prophylactic antibiotics and antifungal wherever it is indicated. The vaccination as per the policy of your ICU, and mostly it is influenza and pneumococcal and other dose is recommended. Then one should be aware, and one should give prophylaxis of opportunistic pathogens like the trimethoprim, sulfamethoxazole, and ganciclovir. Similarly, these patients have a high chances of getting reactivation of tuberculosis, particularly in countries where there is a high chance. And one should give the drugs which are safe in these patients. So thank you, doctor. Thank you very much.
pleasure.